who joins us now here on Out of Pocket, the head coach of the South Carolina Gamecocks. Coach, we're going to talk about the game, but you know the phrase, Randall, how can I make this about me? I'm going to make this about me for a second. Coach, I need you to do me a favor and just look into the camera and say that this curse that Gamecock fans have bestowed upon me is actually the fault of Taylor Zarzer and Matt Stinchcomb, since I was on the sidelines with you this weekend and you got a big win. Please, can you do that?
Not only were you on the sidelines, Alyssa, you were on the sidelines for a huge win where we played like we did as well. So clearly, Stinchcomb and Taylor, I still got issues with. You are good to go, and we can't wait to see you back in Columbia soon. And then the other thing I'll say as well is that was a great team win for us in Norman, and we pride ourselves on being a really close and connected team. But we as a football team have nothing on YouTube with the way the two guys are today looking like. Clearly, y'all have that team bond that all of us are striving for.
Yeah, Coach told us we look like we're about to go work a ride at Disney World. Like
Animal Kingdom, here we are. We just need safari hats.
So bad.
That's so good. Coaching, you exposing the Sooners, getting coaches fired. I mean, look at you just. No, it's all serious though. You obviously, your dad, a legendary coach. You've played, or you've been a part of some legendary teams, coaching staffs. Who's one of those guys that you really looked up to that influenced your coaching style?
Yeah, I learned from so many, and I've been so fortunate to be around so many great head coaches, from George O'Leary at Georgia Tech to Philip Fulmer at Tennessee to Steve Spurrier here at South Carolina, to my dad at Virginia Tech, Kirby Smart, Lincoln Riley. But so much of my philosophy I'm so grateful for, or took from, and I'm so grateful for, was the opportunity that Sylvester Croom gave me at Mississippi State back in 2004. That was my first full-time coaching job, and I had been a graduate assistant at Tennessee for 3 years before that. He gave me an opportunity to come to Starkville in 2004, coach in the SEC, coach my own position. I think I was 26, 27 years old at the time. So somebody that I'm so grateful for and really appreciative of. But every single one of those coaches, and then so many great assistant coaches that I've been around as well that later went on to become head coaches that were on those staffs, I took something from all of them and have been very fortunate to be around some great places and people. But I'll be honest, Randall, this is really hard for me. Like, I've got a ton of respect for you as a player and loved watching you at Kentucky. Loved following your career in the NFL and don't know you personally, but what you appear to be about as a person and a player. But I'm still scarred by 2010, man. And we beat Alabama out here. They were number one in the country. We go up to Lexington. I know you remember, Alyssa. We go up to Lexington the next week. We got the game won. I think it's 4th and 7. They catch us in quarters coverage. I'm coaching the safeties in that game. Randall runs a little double move on us and beats us and hits us on the game-winning touchdown up in Lexington that night. So this is hard for me, but I think it's therapeutic to finally get past that night.
I'm glad we can have this moment right here, because I remember that game, and it was a lot of fun on my end.
And you knew he was never going to let me forget that game either. I think he's mentioned that game every single week this season, haven't you?
Yeah, well, I mean, you got paid back this year, what you did to the Cats.
That's
you know.
True.
Yeah.
Thanks, Coach. You were talking about coaches that influence you. I want to talk about one of the coaches on your staff right now, Clayton White, who a lot of folks across the country going back a few years probably owe Coach White a little bit of an apology, given the defense and the defensive performance that we've seen this year. Number 2 in FBS when it comes to team pass rush grade, 27 sacks, 9 of those coming in that Oklahoma game. How stressed is Coach White this year versus 2021 when all those guys were freshmen? How's life for him right now?
Yeah, he's got a veteran group around him, but still stressed because we're still playing freshmen on the defense at linebacker, and then obviously Dylan Stewart's a true freshman, so they have their freshman moment. But, Clayton's done an amazing job. He's a great person. He's a great coach. He's going to be an unbelievable head coach in my mind one of these days. He's just got a great pulse of everyone around him. He works his rear end off, and we played good defense down the stretch last season and finished out the season strong. And then we had so much of that group coming back in 2024. We knew we needed to get better at being able to rush the passer and affect the other team's quarterback. And we've been able to do that, bringing in Kyle Kennard and Dylan Stewart, and then the other guys at that edge position being a year older. But Clayton, just unbelievable coach for us and great resource for me personally, and glad he's with us and he's got that defense playing at a high level. But he also is not comfortable by any stretch of the imagination. Humility is a week away. We know that.
Yes, and when you look at your defense, obviously they're playing so well, but when you go to the other side of the ball and you look at Sellers and what he's done and the growth that he's had, what have you been most impressed by with his growth?
Just his poise. He doesn't get too high, doesn't get too low. He's very confident. He doesn't, let the emotions or whatever's going on around him affect him. And that's the great thing about Lenoris is, you're looking at these Kentucky highlights. That was his second game ever as a starting quarterback. And then he got knocked out for a period of time in that game. And then he didn't play the whole second half against LSU. And then he didn't play the entire game against Akron. So really, when we went to Alabama a couple weeks ago, Ole Miss, that Ole Miss game was the first plan that he had in a while. And then there's Alabama, and then there's Oklahoma. So you see him continuing to get better each and every week, and that comes with experience. And he continues to get better, and then the people around him continue to get better as well.
Coach, I want to ask you about a guy who didn't necessarily get a ton of touches this past Saturday, but Mazeo Bennett has been a huge part of your offense so far this season. I had an opportunity to talk with him on the phone last week, and I was blown away not only by his maturity, but how willing he is to run block for you. He said the first 2 minutes of his high school tape were just him blocking because he wanted to make sure coaches knew he was willing to do it. What type of player is he? And when you look at some of the freshmen that you have on your roster this season, what is it about this group and this class that they have done to contribute so early for you?
Yeah, great question. In regards to Mazeo, he's just got a unbelievable competitive spirit. And I remember when we were recruiting him, Alyssa, his team came down here for a 7-on-7 camp here at our football facility, and just watching him in that environment when he's on his team competing against another team, it was almost like a switch flipped. And it was like a different Mazeo, just the competitive spirit. And then you see that all the time when he takes the field. He's just got that competitive spirit mentality that you want in a player, and it shows on the field in the run game and the pass game. And then overall with this freshman class, they're really talented, first of all. These are guys that we've been recruiting for a while now and that are now freshmen that we've developed relationships with. And I think the thing with this class, maybe compared to other classes that we've brought in, is just the expectation level that they have as individuals, but also just as a team. I can remember our very first team meeting that we had back in January, and I made reference to a bowl game. And after the meeting, Dylan Stewart pulled me aside, and he's a freshman that's been on our campus for like 48 hours at this point. And he pulled me aside and he's like, "Hey man, like, we got higher expectations around here now than just going to a bowl game." And for a freshman to say that hadn't even been here for 2 days, kind of talks about their mindset and what their expectation levels are for us as a team, but also them as individuals, and what they're doing right now, doesn't surprise us. And then you talk about Mazeo and Dylan Stewart, but there's a lot of freshmen. I mean, Michael Smith is starting as a true freshman at tight end. Josiah Thompson's starting as a true freshman at left tackle. Fred Johnson's a linebacker that's playing a ton of snaps for us. So we really like this group. David Busey's a freshman that's one of our best special teams players. So it's just a really good freshman class, and excited to watch them continue to get better.
Speaking of these freshmen, and honestly, the rest of the guys as well, you're going into another bye week this week. What are your expectations for the bye, and how do you feel about it? I mean, obviously coming off a huge win that you just had this past week, do you think that's going to kill your momentum going into a bye and then come having a tough opponent out of the bye?
Yeah, certainly. When you play like you did last Saturday, you want to keep it going, but it's also coming at a good time too, in the sense that we've played 7 games. We got 5 straight games in November coming up, and that's going to be a grind. And for a lot of these freshmen that you're talking about, they've never played football this late into the season. If they didn't make it to the playoffs, their season was about over here at the end of October. So it comes at a good time in that we are able to get rested up a little bit, get healthy. We've got a 7-game body of work to now really look at our team and say, here's where we need to improve. And we really attacked that this week in practice. give our guys some time off this weekend to get rested up mentally and physically, and then get back to work on Sunday. And then we know we got a big challenge next week against A&M.
Coach, I know you got to run, so last one, I promise. I can't let you go without asking this. How in the world did you get Coach Tanner to bust out those dance moves in the locker room on Saturday? I saw some of his baseball players from when I was in school saying, drop the video, please, God, we have to see this. I saw you push him in there, but was that all it took?
No, pretty much. You know, he's always around and he's always buttoned up in his coat or his suit and tie. And I wanted him to be able to celebrate. I mean, I was an assistant coach in Norman, Oklahoma, and we spent a lot of time on the phone when I was living in Norman, and he was thinking about hiring me and interviewing me throughout that process. So I know hopefully it was a cool feeling for him to go back and see us play that way. And grateful for him and his leadership, but he didn't really have a choice, Alyssa. I did a violent shove to get in there. And once you get in the middle of the players and they're in there dancing, like there's no turning back, there was nowhere for him to go. But he really embraced the moment. I was proud of him. He kind of got into it and frankly, maybe a better dancer than I am as well. So he did a good job in there, and that was a fun celebration in that locker room.
You gave the people what we wanted, and I will say, I'm taking my TV hat off for a second, putting my alum hat on. We're so grateful that Coach Tanner made those phone calls and made that hire. Coach, congratulations on the weekend. We'll see you again against Texas A&M.
No, thank you guys so much, and love watching you each week. Thanks for having me on.